Okay. So today's a big day. 4 o'clock. Glauber Torres has to tell the Tigers is he going to take the 1-year qualifying offer. The 1-year qualifying offer for the free agent is $22.025 million. He can accept it or decline it. If he declines it, he can return to Detroit, and assuming he would want a longer-term contract. But he could also sign somewhere else. It feels kind of unlikely he'll accept this, but it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Torres?
Yeah.
I feel like, it all comes down to he's going to get a multi-year offer from somebody else. The Tigers aren't going to give him a multi-year offer because the Tigers have too many players that they want to bring up.
Yep.
I think secretly the Tigers might be hoping that he gets an offer somewhere else so it clears up that roster spot because it's a $22 million savings. Because not only are you not having to pay Glauber Torres the $22 million, but the player you're bringing up is someone who hasn't played in the majors yet. So their salary is less than $1 million. So you win on both fronts there. You get to promote somebody that you were dying to see, and you don't have to pay him. But will Glauber Torres get a 3 or 4 year deal? I've heard that there was one report that he wanted a 3-year deal, one report he wants a 4-year deal. Obviously would pay him less than $20 million a year, but it's that security of having a 3-year $45 million, or 3-year $50 million contract, whatever it would be.
The other thing is the 40-man roster, they have decisions to make because if you were exposed to the 40-man roster, there's rules that if you're in the minors for a certain period of time, 4 or 5 years, it depends where you were taken, or 3 or 4 years, it's somewhat complicated. But if you're stuck in the minors, you are eligible for something called the Rule 5 draft, which is, after a certain amount of time, any team can take you off your minor league rosters. But they have to keep you at the major league level. What this does is it prevents a player from being stuck behind a superstar. So, for example, if you're a great first baseman in the Tigers organization during the Miguel Cabrera era, and you were never going to get a shot, and you were stuck in the minors, other teams could take you if you were major league ready and put you in their major league roster. It's actually a cool little trigger if you're a player to get a shot. Mm-hmm. But a player can't be taken if they're on their 40-man roster.
Correct.
And who are the Tigers now that have to be put on the 40-man roster?
Well, because they're not going
to lose them.
Right, because their 40-man roster it's at 40 right now. So they would have to drop some players from the roster to add a player like a Hao-Yu Lee or a Tyron Lorenzo. These are players that are eligible for Rule 5 unless they're put on the 40-man roster. There's a starting pitcher, Jake Miller, who's also on that list. And there are players, I think Roberto Campos is another one of these players. We've talked about forever, a million years because he's, was signed as a 16-year-old or 17-year-old. But he's on that list. There's a lot of players that are really intriguing that have been in the minors for a while that I think Trey Cruz is another one.
Well, according to Lynn Henning,
make their minds up.
Did you see his tweet today?
I did not.
Eduardo Valencia, expect the Tigers to easily add Eduardo Valencia as well as Jake Miller, RJ Pettit. RJ Pettit is that big lumberjack with the mustache that we loved out of Sacred Heart or whatever a few years ago. Remember we saw his picture and we're like, look at this cowboy. And he's been a very effective minor league pitcher. Anyway, Eduardo Valencia, Jake Miller, RJ Pettit, and probably Trey Cruz. Also, most would agree the Tigers will be, of course, adding Tyron Lorenzo and Hao-Yu Lee to the 40-man.
So Valencia is interesting because he has done nothing but hit. He's a catching prospect and he catcher first base type guy who has hit at AA and AAA and hit tremendously. And one of these guys that you wonder if is he going to get a break with the Tigers or not. And obviously the Tigers really like Dylan Dingler. He's not going anywhere. But Jake Rogers, what about Jake Rogers? Is he going to still be the backup catcher for this team, or does Valencia get a chance? Or do you keep Jake Rogers and Valencia, obviously, if you're promoting him to the 40-man roster, but does he start the year at AAA and you'll see what happens? I don't know. But there's a lot of interesting players that you have to make decisions on. Most of them are pitchers because there's a ton of pitchers on the 40-man roster. That's the easiest way to trim up those players. The other way is through trades. You create space by trading other players, and it's quite possible we could see the Tigers being active in the trade market.
Like the way Lynn Henning words this, it feels like what he expects. That Andy Ibanez and Matt Vierling will not be on the 40-man roster. Maybe Jason Foley.
Interesting.
Yeah, but the way he worded that, the way I interpret it. Jeff Passan of ESPN has some reporting today that includes the Tigers.
Okay.
He's kind of rumblings here that what he's hearing. The Red Sox love Alex Bregman, who opted out of the final 2 years of his $80 million contract and won't close the door on a reunion despite having Marcelo Mayer ready to play third. Detroit and Chicago, who pursued him last winter but came up short, will rejoin the fray, with Philly lurking as it juggles potential paths. Here we go again, huh?
Yeah, and I think they should be involved in it. I think Alex Bregman's a hell of a player. You really loved him last year. You gave him a huge offer. He turned you down to take a shorter term, bigger annual money per year than what the Tigers offered, but also got him out of it after a year. He got us $40 million. He wanted the $30 million average. So if you come at him with a 6-year and $160 million contract, something like that, it gets him close to that $30 million a year contract status. But do you want to give him 6 years?
Well,
that's a question. You're in the same position you were last year. He's still a really good player, and I like him a lot. But you'd have to understand that the last couple of years of that contract are probably going to be bad years, just like any big contract would be for a player that is in their 30s.
And Jeff Passan wrote a bunch on Skubal. Here's what he wrote. There is no consensus throughout the industry. Some are convinced the Tigers will move the back-to-back Cy Young Award winner because, as one person said, quote, they have to. The chasm between the parties is wide, though in reality not anywhere close to the $250 million figure that some have said.
I always thought that was a crappy.
You and I both thought it was.
Yeah.
He goes on to write, ultimately, the Tigers' president of baseball ops, Scott Harris, what he decides to do will be dictated by others. If another team so thoroughly blows away Harris with a package of players that can join the Tigers' next generation core, and they list the core, that those prospects are an even greater chance of winning in 28 and 29 or 2030, it just might be too tempting to turn down. Only a handful of teams have the prospect depth and urgency to pull off such a deal. And he lists the Dodgers, the Mets, the Red Sox, the Orioles, the Yankees. Then he writes the Mariners have the players, but not the desire. Even if Skubal went to the University of Seattle. And he concludes, in the end, the Tigers' decision will be informed by the markets that surrounds it. If teams can upgrade with a player who is 75% of Skubal at 50% of the price, they will. Until that is no longer an option. Teams simply won't bend over backwards to overpay, regardless of how appetizing a rotation helmed by ace of all aces would be. Anyway, they got plenty of other options. So when teams start to get disappointed in who they don't sign in free agency, they might turn to the Tigers and Skubal. So we're going to have to wait it out, is what Passan's predicting.
Well, it's there are lots of really high-quality starting pitching available in free agency, and I hope the Tigers are interested in the high-quality starting pitching in free agency as well. And you've also got the Skubal chip to play. Here's what I like. Really tough to see what they're going to do with that chip and unless you know what the offers are.
Look at the teams that might want Skubal. Mm-hmm. And then if they happen to be after a free agent pitcher that you also want, you go out, bid them for that free agent pitcher so that you have the Skubal replacement, who's not going to be as good as Skubal, understood, right, but might be, as he put it, 75% of the player for 50% of the price. And then say to that team, of course you could trade for Skubal. You could give us your firstborn, your son, the moon, and a Range Rover, and let's go.
And a Range Rover?
Yeah.
But the biggest problem with that is that everybody knows that Scott Boras is his agent, and Scott Boras is looking for him to hit free agency and not likely to sign any extension.
Yeah, I know. I can only hope that the pending CBA cranks up the urgency for even Scott Boras to say, we're not going to take this to the last minute.
And Scott Boras is, and I wasn't on the air last week with you when his quotes were coming out.
Dude, I got
totally
so mad.
Weird.
I said if that were my agent, I'd be like, dude, what are you doing?
It's just strange stuff coming out of his mouth, not just about Skubal, but about every other high valued free agent out there. There was I think
Limerick King, Dr. Seuss,
USA
MFer.
Today had the article. I'm like, what am I reading here? That's just crazy talk. But will he even listen to an offer from the Tigers? it sounds like that they will, but they're almost like, okay, go ahead, but don't expect us to get excited about it. We'll see.
All right, more of your phone calls and feedback straight ahead. It is Jared Goff, 12:30. Hear what he had to say about what's next for the Lions. It's Karsch and Anderson on 97.1.